Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you. A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means. And today's music is called The F in Freedom. Expand your dreaming awareness by utilizing energetic and shamanic movements, breathwork, guided recapitulation, and shadow reflection. Our guest is Shamanic Dreaming Arts teacher Joel Schafer, techniques from the Toltec tradition. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. Okay, let me say hello to Joel Schafer. Hello, Joel. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to have you on the Dream Journal.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So Joel Schafer is a personal empowerment mentor and shamanic dreaming arts teacher. Through online courses, one-on-one mentoring, and in-person workshops, Joel trains people to reclaim vital energy and attention utilizing the Toltec knowledge base. You can find our guest at joelschafer.com. Joel Schafer, S-C-H-A-F-E-R. joelschafer.com. So, Joel, let's dive right in. Tell me about the tectonic knowledge base. What does that even mean?
Yeah, the Toltec system that I'm referring to comes from the Carlos Castenda material. Mm-hmm. A lot of people claim that is, forged material and stuff. I happen to know a lot of the people associated, and it's a really valid system.
Well, I mean, it can be a valid system, but whether the actual events of the book are true or not might be a little bit more controversial, would you say?
Exactly, okay. Yeah. And I'm not claiming that I know for sure of anything, but what I've done is went and met a lot of shamans in this world and used the Castenda material as a reference, asking them questions. And I met really powerful people that can do really cool stuff that were trained from birth on how to use lucid dreams to communicate with other worlds and other beings and all kinds of things that people would consider unlikely. But I believe it's all true that there's a lot more to this world. And the Toltecs, or the Castenda material, recommends that you practice what are called magical passes out of the tensegrity system. And these movements really have a strange way of moving your perception without having to take any substances. And I think that's really important, to have a system that you can utilize to unlock physical and energetic features. So I've been doing them for a long time, and there's people that have been doing them a lot longer, and it leads to being able to focus on your memories in a way that most people don't realize is possible. So it's like a treasure chest opens up, and all these memories from your childhood become accessible. And it's can be really beautiful and triggering, and it's something to do very carefully depending on your past. Okay.
All right. And so, so this is without psychedelics. You can actually get access to this this unconscious material, right? These memories that maybe are not that we don't remember, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you use the phrase magical passes. What does that mean? Say more about that.
Yeah, they're a series of movements that Carlos Castenda introduced to the world toward the latter part of his time here. Mm-hmm. It was one of the last books that he shared. Is called Magical Passes.
Okay.
And then there's videos that Clear Green put out, the company he started, that you can look into. And they're movements that were done by shamans of ancient Mexico a long, long time ago. when they were at the peak of their power and the peak of their bliss. Really, they were very happy, jovial people, and they discovered these movements basically randomly. They didn't like design them in their head. They just started moving their bodies in a dance that's, very a type of dance that's similar to Tai Chi or Qigong, but it's very strange and different. And some of it's embarrassing to do in front of people, so it breaks you out of your seriousness. And when Carlos Castenda first introduced them, a bunch of people from Hollywood came and wanted to be special and be recognized for their, just being famous actors and stuff. And he tried to get everyone to get down on the ground and make funny faces. And like half the people left. They were too serious. They couldn't get back into their child. So it's movements that break you out of your character, but they're also very masculine and feminine depending on which ones you do. So it's a way of like practicing a type of martial art that isn't hard on your body. And it's also a way of learning to do like a Mexican dance that sort of like has different rhythms. And so you walk in circles and then you walk the other way, and your fist goes to the side, and then you grab energy from one side and place it on your hip, and very strange, almost like puts you in a trance. You get really quiet when you do them, especially in large groups of people doing them simultaneously. It's what we call human mass. There's this wave of energy that moves through the crowd. If there's enough people, it's a powerful thing. And then your dreams just get opened up. You start having the most lucid dreaming experiences because you're basically grabbing energy that isn't typically accessed on the periphery of your toroidal field, and you're bringing it to your vital organs. And your vital organs have a secondary function besides the physical function. And all of a sudden you move beyond the five senses. After years of training this way, you start being able to understand that there's so much more to what we are than the kind of the limited way in which we interpret being a human being is.
Well, say more about that. Well, there's so much more than who we are. So you also even mentioned the idea of secondary function of organs, and so that sounds like another kind of a layers. Like there's the surface layer of being human, the surface layer of the organ, and then there's another layer. Maybe you could say a little bit more about that. What is that about?
Yeah, so shamans and Carlos Castenda specifically said that we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so when you can have some people, it takes mushrooms or something to realize this, but there's a discovery that can be made that you're not actually physical at all, that everything is much more nonlinear, and that even the linear concepts that we are identifying with they're not exactly that. Like Carlos's teacher would make him watch the same leaf fall from the same tree over and over. He took him into a cave, and Carlos thought they were in there for a couple days. He came out, it had been 11 days. They didn't, so shamans have some tricks up their sleeves and can teach people about these capacities that we don't realize. And so, monks and different people from all over the world try to explore their capacity to meet in dreams and have conversations, or use like darkness and silence as a means to discover that we could slip into other layers of the onion. And a lot of people are doing this with ayahuasca and stuff, but there's a way to do it without having to do any substances.
Right, because there's a big physical cost to doing
exactly.
substances.
Yeah, the Toltecs did discover this stuff by doing power plants, but then they realized if they required the power plants or any substances to continue this, that they would damage their astral body. And so they're very careful, and they only use them sparingly as a means to discover things about themselves. But shamans say that our memories flash before us when we die, and their goal is to gain access to that inventory prior to their death.
Yes.
And if you could do that, you could sort of have a shamanic death without it being like a total ego death, where something like an emergency accident happens. You could get to that more near-death experience without it being in a dangerous way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Like, tell me, who are the Toltecs?
Yeah. So I mean, ancient Mexico had according to Juan Matus and the Carlos Castenda books, the history that we've been told is inaccurate. What academia believes is what happened in the past is totally not in alignment with the oral tradition of these shamans of ancient Mexico. And so however that happened, you know, they believe that there's a force here that is present that we cannot see, that is pretty much put humanity under hypnosis, but we used to not be under hypnosis. And so he says we've been cut off at the knees, essentially. We've been reduced down to nothing compared to what we actually are. And what we actually are travelers that can go from one layer of the onion to another, kind of like in the movie Inception, where you learn to control your dreams so you can go into deeper and deeper levels. But Inception, they showed that they were drugging them. Shamans learn to do that kind of stuff without the drugs. And if you could kind of handle your fear enough, you could learn to really explore dream worlds that leads to being able to actually view other realms that are what we Toltecs call alien worlds. And they don't believe that these alien worlds are the way we're taught. They're not like, we're not going to find them through rocket ships and stuff. We're going to find them through internal dream travel. And we can make communication and have contact, so to speak. But it's not the way we've been told or the Hollywood hypes it up to be. It's much more available, especially for women. Women have an advantage. So going back to the organs, the secondary function of the womb is to evolve. So women used to be the ones that determined evolution, and we have say in what we become and how we adjust and change. But we're caught in like a patriarch dynamic where women are competing with men and behaving like men and getting, like we kind of fell out of balance in that respect, that women, as the oracles and the spiritual guides that they are like typically using masculine ways to, show up in the world. And
right.
It's tricky. So yeah, women have so all organs have a secondary function, but the womb is what they call the dreaming box. And it's like a very powerful thing that if women can remember their natural gifts of intuition, then they will be able to sort of free their perception, heal their stress, and move into a more feminine balance that would really be beneficial, because then men would be able to, understand their process as well. And there's just a lot of healing to happen between what we call the two tribes, tribe of man and the tribe of women.
Well, a lot of this really resonates with me, Joel. The idea that that modern humans have lost certain potential. There's something about that. It reminds me of the difference between dogs and wolves, and that yes. Dogs have been domesticated, and they're just not as intelligent as wolves. And so humans have been domesticated by ourselves.
Yeah,
we have domesticated ourselves, and so that we've lost necessarily a certain amount of initiative and intelligence and perhaps even, as you say, access to some of these altered states. And I know I understand anyway. We don't know how much we really know about it. That women were a much more dominant role in certain cultures in the past than they are now, and there is certainly a lot of present pressure on women to act like men. And so it's interesting to say that women actually have this kind of advantage, this kind of sense of being able to choose evolution. So I want to get to dreams. I want to talk a little bit about, of course you can comment on any of that, but I wanted to just make sure that we focus on dreams. And you're saying that that we can actually use dreams as kind of maybe as a kind of altered state to get to some of these states and access some of these other realms. So we have those movements sound pretty amazing, but you'd have to be at a workshop with many people to really access the deepest parts of those movements, it sounds like. But we all dream every night.
Yeah, and we do I teach these classes online as well, and it's quite strong, even though we're doing it through Zoom.
Okay.
In person is obviously stronger, but yeah, what happens eventually, if you recapitulate enough, which is gain access to your memories and take your energy back from that scene, and then give any energy that you took on or any energy splinters that you might have picked up from somebody projecting onto you. There's a way to sort of clean up your past by doing some breath work inside of a scene, and eventually incredible things happen where you can just really reclaim your soul essence. It's kind of like soul retrieval without having a medicine person do it for you. But when you learn to go focused into dream time, or you're able to become conscious while you're dreaming, the Castaneda books recommend looking at your hands as soon as you realize you're dreaming. Realizing you're dreaming is really difficult. We typically think we're just in a normal situation and we're trying to make sense of what's happening because we don't realize we're in a dream.
Right.
The whole point of this work is to potentially become aware that you're dreaming so that you can start to control the dreams in a way that is very strange things to teach. But you basically, if you become aware you're in a dream, there's a way to start paying attention to the objects in the room, so that the dream doesn't suddenly change. Like you might be having a dream, you're teaching a class and their students are watching you, and then all of a sudden you're in a field and you're in a totally different scene. And the Toltecs learn how to stay in the classroom. And they keep reminding themselves, because the dreams, that what we call the assemblage point, is really fluid when you start to move it, and it's a perceptual mechanism that's on the outside of our toroidal field, and it starts moving around. So shamans like to watch people while they're sleeping because they can see this part of their energy field that lighting up based on where this little ball of light is moving inside of their toroidal field. And so we do the movements and the recapitulation in order to get that thing to move while you're awake. And so we call it dreaming awake. And it's like being on mushrooms, basically, without having to take the mushrooms. And then life gets really interesting, So a lot of people microdose these days at work so that work isn't so boring, and it's helpful for them. But there's a way to not rely on the microdose or the macrodose, and that's why I teach these movements. And but yeah, the point of the dream travel is that if you can control your dreams, then you can start learning. You basically build this energetic muscle, and you start to get really strong. You start to be able to control your focus, and you can move into silence easier and easier, and it goes deeper and deeper. So you move beyond meditation. You can basically consciously enter dream states while fully awake, and your third eye opens, basically. I don't call it the third eye typically, but for reference, that's one way of talking about it, the mind's eye. I think we're actually perceiving everything with the entirety of our being, the toroidal field from head to toe. We are perceivers. And then once you start feeling the world, especially women, to feel the world with their womb is where the power lies in a woman, is that capacity to focus her awareness. And like you can merge with the earth. You can place your awareness in the earth and get grounded in a way that most people don't realize. And it's just, that's why we do, Tai Chi, martial arts, Qigong, magical passes. All of these things will lead to being able to get grounded to the point that you feel safe to go into other worlds, because you know that you're strong enough to handle the intensity, and then you become daring and you start taking off. There's a way to communicate with beings that will show up in your dreams, beings from other layers of the onion. And if you have enough energy, you'll notice maybe something in your dream is happening, like something's fluttering in the corner. And you'll know that's a scout. They say you could ask this thing to take you into its world, and then all of a sudden you go in like a wormhole or a tunnel, and you're in this world where these beings, some people do this with DMT. They go talk to what they call the machine elves or whatever. But there's different experiences with different types of beings, and you can do this without having to take DMT, and that's what I recommend, because it's just so much more rewarding to have kind of hiked up the mountain instead of taking a chairlift.
Right. Yes. So, Joel, I wonder, I'd like to kind of ground this in sort of something a little like personal. Like, do you have a dream or a vision that you'd like to share of this kind of experience? I mean, you're kind of giving some amazing ideas, but I'd love to hear like some specific, and it doesn't have to be your most spectacular moment, but whatever comes to mind, I just trust that intuition.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my breakthrough moment about 15 years ago was I learned to be aware enough in my dreams to go to sleep consciously, because that's what they say to do, is to sleep in the same dreaming, in the same position that you want to sleep when you want to bed in your real world, or what in this dream, this world. And so I was in a dream and I was like, oh, I'm dreaming and I'm going to lay down in the same position as I am in my physical world.
In the dream you lay down in your sleeping position? Okay.
And then I woke up in another dream. And then I was able to do that one more time. And then I woke up in a dream that was so real that it scared me. It was so real. It was so much more real than this dream that I'm in right now talking to you. It's the way it felt. And that was me just laying back, resting in a car while somebody incredible next to me was driving. I couldn't tell who it was. I was too caught in the feeling. And I was just the most peaceful moment of my life, just going down the road with my eyes partially open. I could see the rays of light. I could see the trees. I could see the road. I could see the blue sky. And it was the most lucid moment of my life, and still is to this day. And I struggle to get back to that in my dreaming, because as soon as it happens, I get so excited that I wake up.
Right. That's classic. So it's that sense of like of realness, of reality, of just being lucid. Like the whole word lucid is like light. I think it comes from the word light, or related. There's something that's just so real about this moment.
Yeah, it's very illuminating. It was like being filled with light. I felt full. I didn't feel, like I typically felt. I felt something beyond joy that was ecstatic. And I've gone on to experience that in many, many ways, but never to quite that degree, because sometimes the first time is the most potent.
Or it can be like a signpost, like a marker, like this is important, go this way.
Yeah.
And so I find that even if it doesn't necessarily come back as strongly another time, there's still great benefit in the way that it's pointed out. That's been my experience with these kind of moments.
Yeah. And then what happened was my ability to practice dreaming awake became incredible, which has gone beyond the dreaming asleep stuff. So I practice something called gazing.
Oh yeah, tell me about gazing.
I'm looking out at the mountains. I'm like maybe sitting in the mountains. I'm looking over this vast land of trees and clouds and everything. I'm just observing the world very silently, and I allow my eyes to slowly shift to where they're cross-eyed, and everything starts to move. And then another entire vision will overlay the view that I have. Like all of a sudden I'm looking at a kingdom of castles that are like I can't tell if the trees are trees or if they're like parts of the castle. It's just a very unique thing that Don Juan tried to get Carlos to do all the time, was to stop looking at the world with your eyes, feel it with the entirety of your being, let your eyes shift. And then you can zoom in on certain sections of whatever you're observing. So Carlos Castenda walked on a bridge made of fog because his gazing got so powerful that he was able to act upon his perceptual experience. And that's what we're capable of doing. But because that sounds so insane, we don't allow ourselves to recognize our capacity to unbind from this physical illusion.
Yeah, no, what you're saying about the vision really tracks in terms of my experience of psychedelics, and that I really know you're kind of there when the walls start melting, or when you start right, you see the movement starting to happen, and of course that's just the gateway. That's just kind of the beginning, but that you can get to this state without taking psychedelics without sleeping, just by intention, really, I guess. Would that be a way to say that?
Yeah, like I sun gaze a significant amount of time, and there's a point in the sun gazing, and I don't sun gaze directly at the sun.
Oh, yeah.
I find something that the sun is reflecting off, like a body of water, and I place my awareness inside of that light, and I stay in silence, and then eventually the world disappears, and all I'm surrounded with is like one beautiful color. And then those colors start to change. And then eventually, if I can stick it out and not panic, a memory will become available, and I'll be back in the memory so completely that I have no reference for the fact that I'm sitting on a dock watching the lake anymore. I lose all ability to know where I am because I'm completely in the experience. But I'm sitting up on a dock watching the lake, and yet I'm in what we call the usher, a memory so potent that it takes you back and you become a time traveler. You actually return to the memory completely. And that's what eventually we'll be able to do, is not realize that we're not linear, that we can go back into that 6-month-year-old self when our perception was moving and we were tripping out, and just looking at our parents and looking at the carpet, and all that stuff comes back. And it's very incredible to be, in your mid-40s and have the memory of being a little baby.
This is amazing. So using all these techniques, the lucid dreaming, gazing, recapitulation, to get to the place where these things that are kind of stuck for us can be freed up, and like you say, go back in time and actually sort of change our relationship to the event, or even change the event itself, perhaps? I mean, I don't...
Yeah, retro-causal healing.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once you make peace with everything that's happened, which isn't easy for some, but if you do, then you no longer... The past heals because your present perception is so joyful that when you look back on everything, you're so thankful for each and every experience, because you realize nothing happened to you, it happened for you. Like the universe is conscious, and it's assisting us by giving us feedback. So Carlos Castenda said, you don't need a guru. The world will teach you everything you need to know. Just go out and meet people and get a job and get to know how triggered you are when a boss yells at you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is a fascinating conversation. Joel Schafer, so glad to have you on the show. We're at our halfway point, so there's still plenty more to come, and we're going to take a short break. I just want to say that this is Joel Schafer, and we're talking about wisdom from the Toltec tradition and lucid dreaming and all kinds of things like that. You can find out about Joel Schafer at his webpage, joelschafer.com. We are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU and podcast everywhere. We will be right back. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the beautiful flute of Amy Barnes, who was backing up Rick Cleffel this week on our live background music. Well, it's not live, but it was recorded fresh, recorded live. You are listening to the Dream Journal, and I am Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork. I'd like to send out a special welcome to our far-flung listeners. We have quite a large number of people listening in today all over Santa Cruz, San Jose, Walnut Creek, Concord, San Pablo, San Rafael, Santa Rosa, Fresno, Crescent City, Kent, Washington, Vancouver, British Columbia, Billings, Montana, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Quebec, California, Quebec, Canada, Brooklyn, New York, Concord, Massachusetts, and Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, again in Canada. So this is a truly international show today. And I want to encourage you to help me nudge the algorithm. I'm on a mission to encourage interest in dreaming and spiritual practices. So please follow the Dream Journal on your favorite podcast app and subscribe. And if you're inspired, leave us a rating or review. It really helps. But honestly, the most important thing is totally off the grid, which is to tell your friends about your dreams. I would love to get people talking about dreams with each other. And this is just a reminder for you to give it a try. I bet you have some friends who are interested in dreams and you never knew it. And they never knew you were interested in dreams too. You can go to Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows and pod drops by following hashtag The Dream Journal and at Experiential Dreamwork. Also, please contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about a new book or to let folks know about your dream-related offerings or just a really exciting idea that you have about dreaming that you'd like to get out into the public. So contact me if you want to be a guest on the show. Please mark your calendar for a local in-person dream conference at the beautiful Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. The Festival of Dreams will be October 10th through 12th this fall. Next week, our guest is Darby Christopher, the Hayden Institute practitioner who practices what she calls dream liturgy. So stay tuned for that. And today's guest is Joel Schafer, and we're talking about shamanic practices, the Toltec tradition, lucid dreaming, gazing, and recapitulation, and all kinds of things like that. See, Max is talking to somebody on the phone. Oh, line one. Oh, we have a caller. So, hello. Please say hello and introduce yourself.
Morning.
Morning.
My name's Kelly, and I had a couple questions for the guest.
Sure. Where are you calling from, Kelly?
Santa Cruz.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
I listen to your show occasionally. I can remember to tune in.
Great. Love it.
I have two questions. One has to do with what's called retro-causality, and the second one has to do with how do you avoid getting eaten by the eagle?
Good questions, Joel.
You can answer them in any order, but that's my questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I mean, retrocausal healing is a very unique thing that can happen with the support of a group, or it can happen on your own. But it's a matter of really practicing saying something different in the moment, that where you said something maybe cruel to someone that you care about, and you go back and you replay out the scene, and you can ask somebody to play your girlfriend or your wife, and then you can switch, and then she plays you and you play her, so you can feel what it felt like so you say the thing that was said as it was said, and then you switch roles and experience it on both sides. And then this is what the Toltecs call theater of infinity. And then maybe you'll come up with another way of handling that situation, and you play that out, and an incredible healing happens. The more people witnessing, the better, because it's like humanity really heals through the movement of emotion and the vulnerability of letting people witness your the fact that you're reviewing this very unique event that there's a blueprint of your life. And then when you heal your blueprints, then you get to remodel your temple. And then as far as the eagle goes, I know it sounds like a daunting thing in the books, but the eagle and the dark sea of awareness are one and the same. And the eagle isn't a negative thing. It's just prompting us to evolve. And so we assume that when we die, that we just reincarnate. But the Toltecs suggest that's not the case. They believe there are parallel lives, that all of our lifetimes are happening. They're coexisting. And so the point of our journey here is to potentially recapitulate the totality of our memories. And because memories flash before our eyes when we die, if we were to review all that inventory prior to our death, the eagle, or the dark sea of awareness, will accept your complete recapitulation of every memory as a means to cross over into eternity while keeping your awareness, so that you don't just get thrown back into a parallel life again. And this is the afterlife consciousness reaching the third attention. So shamans say that humanity is under a spell, essentially, and that we kind of have a metaphorical dagger, and we're all stabbing ourselves and bleeding out and pretending that that's normal. Mm-hmm. It's like we are not aware of how incredible we are, and so we get caught in distractions instead of focused on evolution. And we can't change people, but we can change ourselves. And so shamans go inward, they recapitulate every single thing that they gain access to, and the more memories you gain access to, the more memories start to surface. And we've compartmentalized our memories to the point that we don't realize that we've been living a really long life. And so there's a way to slow time down by becoming aware. And so the eagle is basically giving us that opportunity. It's not a negative thing, and yet there are forces that are interfering with us that are higher on the food chain than us. And so the battle is in the chest, the battle is in the heart, the enemy is within. It's not outside of us. It's about getting to our ego and understanding our limited perspective of victimhood or victoriousness. We're always either putting ourselves below or above. But if you can reach that neutrality and see that every person's story is rich, then you can't compare yourself or put yourself above or below anymore. And then you start to laugh, you start to love life, and you see that everyone's story is tragic and beautiful at the same time. And so this is the journey to becoming aware, is by recapitulating. You don't have to have a typical death. You can have an alternative type of death. And that's what Don Juan did. And my elder knew Don Juan, and there's many people that have known these people. This is not made up stuff. It's just that it seems so challenging we're so domesticated compared to the wildness that these shamans have, that it sounds far-fetched.
Yeah. So Kelly, how does this resonate with you?
Well, it brings up a couple of points. I haven't read the books for maybe 30 to 40 years. There was 2 points that he came up. One was, if I recall, Don Juan and his crew took off as balls of light and avoided the eagle. Yep. And the second one was in the last Don Juan book, there's these aliens. They're like, thousands of feet tall, walking around the mountains, that Don Juan and Carlos are watching one afternoon. So how does those two things, how do you explain those?
Yeah, so the reason why Toltecs join in large groups, or what they call a sorcerer party, is that if enough people are focused on the same thing, you can cross over into the afterlife consciously as a group. And that's the point of this work, is to learn to find a wolf pack and be able to function in a wolf pack. Like a flock of birds, the person in the front of that flock, when they fly in a formation, they rotate, and each person gets to experience. But in the Toltecs tradition, there is a leader, a male leader and a female leader. And the female leader goes and crosses into the third attention many, many years before the male leader. And then that female is like a beacon for that male to find her in the abyss and move beyond the abyss, even into other worlds. So there are alien worlds, and what Don Juan and Carlos were observing, they called the mud shadows. And so we are not we are not on top of the food chain. There's a force that has lent us its mind. And because of that, we think that our thoughts are our own, but we have two voices. We have a soft voice and we have a hard voice. And that hard voice is like a radio channel that's on all the time, and it's hard to turn off. Shamans learn to turn that off and stop listening to that voice. And once you do that, the most incredible healing happens because you get to float in silence. But if you were ungrounded, that would be dangerous. So the training and the movements bring you into your body and then help you to get anchored and grounded. Like in martial arts, I'm not that large of a man, but the people twice my size can't move my body because I'm so grounded, because I practiced it for so long that I have like an electrical connection to the earth that makes it hard for me to be moved. And I've witnessed this in others. So our ability to get grounded is what makes the capacity to do these kinds of things without getting spun out or overwhelmed. And so a nervous system dysregulation is if that's what's going on for each person, that's kind of the priority, is to regulate our nervous system first and foremost.
What are the mud? What would you call those? The other
the mud shadows.
Mud shadows. Yeah. Is there? I noticed that there isn't much conversation or description of that in any of the Castenda books until the end, and it's just a passing one, actually.
Yeah.
Is that a reason for that, or is it just considered a secret? Or?
It's such a disturbing thing to talk about, and especially for Carlos to have witnessed it. You know, it made him very upset to see that we were being fed off, and to realize for him what was most disturbing is he realized his father never had a chance to become aware of this, and it just pained him. But Carlos had become a very strong person by this time, and Don Juan had trained him properly. So Carlos was able to witness this thing that properly propels you into taking care of yourself in a way that goes beyond discipline. It's what we call impeccability. Mm-hmm. You learn to listen rather than live by rules. You become spontaneous, and instead of disciplining yourself into saving energy, you interact with this world in a magical way so that you're gaining energy from the joy that you're having by just falling in love with your existence. And these beings cannot feed off of you once you reclaim your power like Carlos did. They are no longer a threat to you, but you get to observe everyone else in your world complaining about everything, and you see that they're not really complaining. That's the what we call the flyers or the mud shadows. That's their deal, is they make you maintain in self-pity and self-importance. Me. That's how humanity's been being controlled, is through self-importance, and it's not natural.
That reminds me of the idea of the hard voices.
Yeah.
In our heads, like that we hold ourselves back and create our own kind of trauma inside our own heads many times.
Exactly.
Can you explain if that is connected with egregores, which are mind-created entities? Like I know in Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of the protectors and a lot of the deities are what's called egregores. People, they basically feed off of their followers, take energy from them to get more powerful.
Yeah, it's a parasitic realm, and there's all kinds of beings beyond the flyers and the mud shadows. There's just all different types of inorganic beings out there. We share this world with many creatures, and so this what the Olga Karatiti books called "Entering the Circle" refers to is spirits of trauma, and so our ancestry is filled with trauma. And there's these energies that are connected to that trauma. And so like if me and my wife start to get into a fight, all this, it's like something shows up that's trying to make it exacerbate that fight. And you start to be sensitive to the fact that there are things that feed off of emotion. And so you learn to balance your emotions, not by avoiding emotions, but by having emotional healings. If you can heal your emotions and get to any unresolved wounding from your past, then you won't be able to be interfered with by the spirits of trauma eventually. But this is shadow work, and it's very difficult to face our wounding. And the closer you get to someone, the more vulnerable that connection is, and the more likely your shadow stuff is going to surface.
Is that like alchemy? I mean, I know that there's clear light in Tibetan Buddhism. There's white, black, near clear light, and then clear light. Is that something that's getting to clear light similar to what you're describing as the healing?
Well, I don't know that terminology, but the Toltecs suggest that our energy field is filled with all kinds of stuff, and we can clear our field so that there's nothing in it at all. And so there's these 3 statues in the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. They all look the same, except one is heavily tattooed, one is partially tattooed, and one has very few tattoos. And everyone assumes that the one with more tattoos is older because it had more time to get tattoos. But those tattoos represent the fact that we wear our experiences in our energy field. And if you recapitulate, those tattoos go away. So the person that had very few tattoos was someone that recapitulated their life, and therefore they had purified their energy field, and therefore they were able to patch the holes in their luminosity. And then they were no longer losing energy throughout their day, and then they require less sleep and less food. And then you start to be able to do things like go into a cave for 11 days without even noticing that you were in there that long. It all just opens up.
Kelly, thank you so much for calling. It was good to have you.
Yeah, that was great conversation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Take care. Thanks for being a Dream Journal listener. So this is, Joel, this is amazing. I'm really taken with the idea of parallel lives and the idea that by the healing this current life, I'm perhaps simultaneously healing these other lives as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you think about it that way, even if your life's really difficult, it's not about you fixing it entirely. It's about you becoming aware that the lessons are appropriate for this particular parallel life that you're in. But there's all these other parallel lives, and some of them are worse and some of them are extremely better. But by striving to evolve, regardless of your conditioning, the universe will recognize that you're truly willing to break the patterns and your habits that are keeping you from discovering the totality of your being. So there's just this capacity to reclaim all these different parts of our being that makes that possible.
Yeah. So Joel, I see on your webpage that you have a lot of different classes that you offer to people, and you definitely have a very interesting way of speaking. I'm pretty fascinated by this. It seems it's inducing changes in me just listening to you talk. I wonder if you'd like to say a little bit about your offerings and how folks can get in touch with you.
Please. Thank you. Yeah. So just at joelschafer.com, you'll find that I do one-on-one mentoring. And it's really powerful to have conversation with somebody that's truly listening. And I offer reflection. I serve as a mirror. So I'm pretty intuitive as to what to ask. And, I'm available for deep work when one is ready to be guided and recapitulating. And my courses, we do really powerful movements together, and in person and online. So every 3 times a year, we meet in Missoula, Montana, for in-person retreats and workshops. We go into the mountains and we do 2 days indoors, and then we do the 3rd day in the mountains. The 3rd day is optional, but it's really powerful to go into nature together and do these movements. And then, just the online courses. We do 3 classes every month for 3 months in a row, and then we take a month off. And so the next one begins in early September, and I'll be sending that info out on my website and by email and by social media very soon.
Okay, wonderful. And that's joelschafer.com, SCHAFER, joelschafer.com. So I wonder if you have any final thoughts or encouragements to our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really believe that this is a dream, and we don't have to take things so seriously. And there's a way to lighten our load There's breath work and primaling and, shaking, whatever your body needs in order to, properly release any tension. I was a project manager in construction, and I was stressed to the max, and I wasn't sleeping. I had insomnia, and I was in a very difficult dynamic where I was carrying weight that wasn't mine on top of all the stress that I had. I was with my wife's health challenges. I was drowning, and it was very uncomfortable to not know how to ask for help. And so I encourage people to raise your hand and say, this isn't going in the direction that seems sustainable. I'm going to need to get realistic about how dangerous it is to be in this much stress. And so whether I do free consults, and 30 minutes of consultation can be life-changing, but I had to reach out and ask for help. And if I was going to wait to find a perfect person to help me, I would have never gotten help. Mm-hmm. So it's the person out there that can help you may not be the all end all of everything, but people that have certain gifts. And I can recommend women that I continue to work with, my wife included. So my wife and I do a lot of coursework as well, and meet in community meetings and hold space for people to come to these Zoom calls and ask questions. And I think it's just time for people to return to community, even if you've had a challenge in your life where you got jaded or hurt by people. There is a way to open our hearts and connect to humanity in a way that is revitalizing, and it's a little vulnerable at times, but
find your wolf pack, huh?
Yeah, find your wolf pack.
Mm-hmm. Joel Schafer, thank you so much. This has been a fabulous conversation. I wish you well with your work, and maybe we'll keep in touch. That'd be great.
That'd be wonderful. Thanks so much, Catherine. I appreciate this very much.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. My name is Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org. That's KATHERINE at ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag the Dream Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And thank you so much to Rick Cluffel, engineer and music creator. I'll say also thank you to Amy Barnes today for also being part of the background music here. Audio editing is by Suki Wessling. Phones by Max Deaton. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.